attorneys, the accountants, the dentists, the doctors.
So it's to give them some limited liability protection.
Right.
And how does that work?
Well, they're treated as a partnership, but there's still one big caveat, and that the big caveat is the legislature didn't want to allow professionals to eliminate their malpractice exposure. So limited liability partnerships do not limit that protection. So
now, as I believe you're in one of these, isn't that correct? Or?
Well, we're in an S corporation.
Oh,
if I had my druthers,
okay.
it was before my time.
Oh, okay.
I would have been in a limited liability partnership.
Okay.
Yeah.
I forgot that. Okay, but anyway, now are you just unlimited in the liability for your own legal practice, or are you exposed related to for all of your partners?
Well, it all depends on your insurance, your malpractice insurance. But yes, the answer is you can limit your liability for you for the malpractice of your partner, okay, if you have the proper insurance. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can see why this is such a critical thing to be thinking about and getting professional help for when you're getting started. You know, depending on the type of business that you're involved with, you really need this sort of guidance for the people that are familiar with the rules and how they apply. And in some cases, actually, you want to get a team together, so you may want to have a tax consultant, CPA involved, in addition to the attorney in the process.
Absolutely, Michael. I can't emphasize that enough. Oftentimes, an individual will go to one person, but it is a team because there's all different perspectives and information that needs to be accumulated, and the team, if it knows what is each one doing on the team, it's much better result for the client.
Well, the other thing is people are trying to start a business on a shoestring. And so there are these operations, what I'm talking about, we'll set up the corporation for you, $200, whatever, flat fee, and away you go. And the same thing, we'll set up the limited liability for you, and we'll help you to maintain the paperwork, and we'll charge you $100 a year to do that, or whatever. So it seems to me that that's kind of a dangerous thing to just do that, and you think, I'm taken care of. Would you like to comment on that? Or?
Absolutely. No, in fact, I've had to restructure many of these so-called internet or entity type mills, because the problem is that they are not one set of or entity or one structure fits all. And a lot of times people will set these things up. Now, if it's just a sole individual, I'm not going to fault them for trying to do that. However, they don't pay attention to some of the more salient or softer issues, which includes liability. Just because you form a corporation does not mean that you can ignore that corporation. And if you ignore it, somebody's going to come in and sue you and say, well, you ignored the corporation, therefore the courts should ignore it. With these services, they don't really pay that much attention to them, and oftentimes they don't pay attention to some of the tax ramifications. They don't pay attention to some of the issues that are very, very pertinent to a day-to-day operation.
Well, for paying little, you can only expect to get a little.
You get a little.
And so what they do basically is just they'll get the legal entity set up, but the problem is that it's the operation that's critical. And so somewhere along the way, you've got to get some help, I think,
Absolutely.
In order to do this properly. But with that, let's get into our last entity. What is a sole proprietorship?
Well, sole proprietors have been around a long, long time. And if somebody walks into our office that's been doing business and doesn't have a legal entity, they are, one individual, they'd be a sole proprietor. Problem with being a sole proprietor is the same problem of being a general partner. Unlimited liability. And that's a problem. Now, can we mitigate that with insurance? Absolutely. Whether sole proprietorship should be used is really based upon what the insurance is available and what type of business is going on. Now, the problem with sole proprietors is that you file your taxes on a Schedule C, as you well know, each year by April 15th. Schedule Cs are probably the most attacked and reviewed schedules on in the tax return. Now, I don't know that for a fact, but I do know this, is there's constant challenge of the expenses of a sole proprietor, and that's problematic. So you're also, the sole proprietors apparently are the highest income tax audit risk. So, but they are useful because when you're first starting out, a lot of people like to cut corners. My personal feeling, it's penny wise and pound foolish, unless there's a very, very good reason to be a sole proprietor.
Well, what I can say is I think the Government Accounting Office recently did a study, and they found that there was a huge problem of noncompliance of sole proprietors. And that's the real reason why it's such a fertile area for examinations for the IRS. I mean, in a sense, that's where it's the easiest to pick up a lot of adjustments, because there are people that are claiming deductions they're not really entitled to,
Right.
or they're failing to report income.
Mm-hmm.
And they think that they can do a cash business. Well, I've had people that tell me, I didn't get a 1099. Doesn't that mean I don't have to report this income? And, well, think of a grocery store. I mean, that's the easiest example. You think that they are not required to report the income for whenever you buy a gallon of milk. And, you're not going to easily give them a 1099 for that, obviously. But they're required to have accounting systems and so forth to track their income and their deductions and to justify everything. And so is every other business. And so, anyway, so you need to give a lot of attention to this. And again, sole proprietors are probably the ones who are most likely to prepare their own income tax returns.
Mm-hmm.
And when people prepare their own income tax returns, I guess you and I both know, as having a tax background, it's very easy to make mistakes.
Yeah.
They don't really know about the detailed rules and so forth. And the software can help you, but it's a little bit like giving a scalpel, to somebody who's not a surgeon.
Yeah.
Well, Bernie, we're out of time, so I want to thank you very much for being my guest today.
It's my honor.
I hope you can come back and be a guest another time. I think this is a very important topic. And so I hope you folks will pay a lot of attention to this and get that help from your attorney and CPA. And with that, thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll see you next time on Financial Insider Weekly.